Let me go ahead and get started. This is Dominic. From cold to gold, this is about sales strategies, or to put it in a better way, as Dominic and I have talked about, getting your expletive together, getting your stuff together.
Getting your stuff
Uh,
together.
yes, is what we're gonna do. But let me first start here, Dominic. Kind of tell us about your background. Um, how did you get from point A to point B to where we are today? And then we'll dive right in. Does that sound good?
Yeah, I really appreciate it. I just want to congratulate Company Cam on all their success. Most of my clients that I work with actively use Company Cam and can't say enough good things about it. So if you're on this webinar and you're not using Company Cam, definitely use it to your advantage. You want to talk about a tool that can enhance your in-home presentation. Company Cam is a phenomenal way to build trust and credibility and differentiate. But my personal journey, I'll try to be brief. I started out in the home improvement industry fresh out of college in 2010. And I started as an outside salesperson for a company called Mad City Roofing, Siding, and Windows. And this company had just gone from a storm restoration roofing company doing mainly insurance claims to transitioning into a retail one-call close sales organization. And that's one thing I'm eternally grateful for is when I first got into the business, I knew nothing about sales. This was actually my first sales job ever. I didn't know how to close the door with the wind behind me. And coming fresh out of college, I was so broke I couldn't afford to buy clothes, much less know how to close a sale, right? I didn't have two pennies to rub together.
Yeah.
And the company just embraced this Grasso 10-step sales methodology. And I had never heard of it before. It was brand new to me, but it's something I'm very, very excited and grateful for because simply following the Grasso 10-step sales methodology, having no sales background whatsoever, my first year in the company was Salesman of the Year. As a matter of fact, my first 6 months in the business, I sold just shy of $1 million in roofing, siding, and windows, following a one-call close. And I was so systematic. You should have seen me my first month in sales. It was like, John and Mary, that was step one of our 10-step process. Let me move on to step two now, the needs assessment and or survey. It's like so robotic, but the thing is it worked. It still freaking worked. Yeah. So my belief in the system was just radiating. And one big epiphany moment for me was after I won Salesman of the Year in 2010. So we had the awards ceremony in 2011. This mentor that I've been watching on, VHS, I've been watching on DVD, I've been listening to his 8-tracks. Rick Grasso, it was actually a surprise guest at the annual awards dinner when I was getting recognized as the Salesman of the Year. And this is my first time meeting him in person. It was like one of those moments where you meet your idol and your mentor, someone you've always looked up to for the first time. It was like a celebrity moment for me. And then having dinner with Rick Grasso and learning about how he's traveling the world. And, he used to live in Italy for 3 years and he's a national sales trainer and all the impact he had on the industry. I made up my mind at that moment that I didn't just want to learn this guy's system and his methodology. I wanted to be him. I wanted to be Rick Grasso. And I made that my personal life mission. It was a burning desire that I fueled back in 2011. But I knew if that was going to happen, I needed a case study to point to, because who the hell is Dominic Caminata and why does anyone care, right? So I used that as my primary motive to build what I deem to be the highest performing sales team in the industry. And by the way, Mad City today is pacing about 360 million, one of the top companies in the country. But essentially, after 3 years of being the top salesperson, I got promoted to sales leader, got my hands on the steering wheel as a sales coach. And that's when I found my true calling in life. I found an unparalleled amount of fulfillment and gratitude and just excitement and passion coaching and training and mentoring salespeople. And basically within 7 years, I grew that team from 8 million to doing 100 million, following a one-call close, following the Grasso system. And the thing I'm most proud of is I had 55 salespeople, 55 sales professionals cumulatively closing at over 50%, following a one-call close. And something I'm still proud of to this day, but that was my case study. So now my personal life mission, now that I've had the opportunity to take over Rick Grosso's legacy, is essentially to share this gift that he gave to me that transformed my life to as many people as possible. So again, really I try to be brief. There's a lot more to the story.
I'm really glad you went into detail there because I think it's it's awesome that it was so impactful and that you're carrying it forward. Like, I think that's kind of the ultimate dream that, if you can do something like that, it's incredible. Let's set the stage. When we
Yes,
first
sir.
talked, you said over the past few years, there have been salespeople that have made money despite bad habits. Explain what you mean by that and what are these bad habits that you see?
Well, a lot of people know that, of course, in the beginning of the pandemic, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of uncertainty. But what ended up happening between 2020 and 2021 is we actually experienced the golden years of the home improvement industry that we'll most likely never see again in our lifetime.
Mm,
Unprecedented growth, unprecedented success, unprecedented want, need, and demand for people to get their home renovated, their home improved. A lot of people were getting free handouts and cash money from the government, and contractors were getting handouts and cash money. So they're able to be a little bit more liberal with how they're investing in leads and how they're spending money. And what ended up happening was people were essentially tripping over money, closing sales, having success, reasonable levels of success, despite not necessarily doing everything the way they should be doing it.
mm,
And I explain this way. I say one of the worst things that can happen to a salesperson or an organization is having reasonable levels of success doing it wrong. Because then what happens is when you're having reasonable levels of success doing it wrong and you're not staying hungry, you're not continuing to learn and educate yourself and honing your skills, you kind of tend to go backwards. And now that things are starting to normalize, and by the way, I don't believe at all that we're experiencing a contraction of the home improvement industry. I just think we're getting back to normal levels of growth, that 4 to 6% growth per year. But things are starting to normalize also in terms of the difficulty of earning someone's business. I
mm,
can't just go into a house and order take. I have to, first of all, make sure I have speed to lead. Make sure I'm investing in the technologies and tools to be the first one in. And then, of course, making sure I have the world-class sales training and methodology to be the last one in. So that first one in, last one in strategy, make sure my salespeople are so proficient in the house and so dialed in on how they're earning the trust and credibility and rapport and giving that masterful presentation, making that close a natural conclusion. So I'm maximizing my conversion on every precious opportunity. But some of the bad habits I saw forming is salespeople were shortcutting the process. They were shortcutting. And this is not an opinion, this is factual. So after looking at the data, and right now, and we'll talk about this more, but we have access to 100 years worth of data at Gross University through our partnerships with Gorilla Voice and other AI companies. And we're seeing that the average salesperson today is still in the house between 30 and 45 minutes. I don't care what you're selling, you're never going to be able to build a rock solid foundation of trust, build a relationship. Of course, making sure that the value of your investment far exceeds the price condition, all the things that are required to sell profitably. Again, I'm not talking about taking orders and being a low price competitor. I'm talking about having high margin. You're simply not going to have high levels of success. And as it turns out, across the industry, because people are shortcutting, the average closing rate is between 10 and 20%. So that's one of the messages we'll talk about. It's one of the bad habits that we're forming, though, is people were skipping over things. And bad habits form with all salespeople over time. And this is what happens is you go into a house, you deliver a slide, or you use a certain close or certain word track in the house, and this customer woke up on the wrong side of the bed. They gave you a negative reaction to that. And because you got a negative reaction from one person on the next lead, you tend to skip over that. You omit that. You get that one person that says, I don't need to hear this sales crap. Just give me a price, right? So then you shortcut that on the next lead. And then weeks and months and years of that, you're so far off in left field, you don't even know where the hell you started. I don't know if you've experienced this before, but it's common for salespeople to get fresh into the industry, receive training, have pretty decent success out of the gate, but then they hit a wall. It's like the brakes get slammed, they hit a wall, they don't know what the hell happened. Well, what happened is the habitual reinforcement of those bad habits from fine-tuning and tweaking, but often shortcutting the process. I'm seeing an epidemic of people selling on price versus selling on quality and value. At the beginning of the pandemic, a lot of companies made the mistake of saying, you know, because things are so difficult, because times are tough, we're going to lower our prices. And the companies that I saw that were highly successful did the exact opposite. They raised their prices. They understood that now more than ever, it's important to stack our cash and make sure we have enough margin. As a matter of fact, one of our quotes that we live by here at Gross University is volumes for vanity and profit is for sanity. That's why we actually have a whole podcast called Profits for Sanity. But we need to be laser focused on providing the tools, the training, the methodology, so our salespeople can be trained to sell on quality, sell on value, and not price. As a matter of fact, that's one word I forbid my salespeople to use in the house when they're ever talking about our product, our service, or our company is price. We're not here to win the bidding war with Chuck in a truck who doesn't give a flying darn. We're here, again, to sell on, we're like the Rolls-Royce dealership of the industry. We're selling a permanent solution, the last roofing system this homeowner will ever need, the last window, siding, you name it. But switching gears, mentally getting away from being so concerned about price. Now, I want to speak to this. I'm seeing a huge issue with this, especially in roofing, where people are so concerned about being competitive on price. And I firmly believe in this, and this is something I train my salespeople on. We're absolutely killing it selling roof profitably. Just understand that price only ever becomes a determining factor when you fail to differentiate. Everyone should write that down because that's the message we need to convey to our salespeople. If they're constantly getting caught up in bidding wars and low price competitors and all this stuff, we need to get more laser focused on how we're differentiating ourselves, our company, our product, our service. Again, giving them that 5-star white glove treatment, they're not going to get anywhere else. So we'll talk more about that. But in not investing in themselves or their team. So when people are having success doing things halfway decent, they're less motivated to want to invest in themselves. Now, what's interesting is I see companies that are not necessarily killing it, that are not investing in training. But then I see companies that are wildly successful that hire us to receive more training. Companies that are already doing extremely well by industry averages that are investing in more training to get even better. And I firmly believe in that if better is possible is good enough. So one thing that I'll say on this webinar that it's worth repeating several times is you can't afford not to invest in the right training to take your team to the next level. And you got to make time for this stuff. When you make time for the right training, it's basically going to give you a much higher return on investment. Instantly, it's going to take your company to the next level. It's well worth it. We can talk more about that. But yeah, bad habits form quickly when you're making reasonable levels of success, doing things okay. But, you know, simple numbers here, if anyone's curious. If you don't have a sales process, for example, just simply taking your same sales team and inserting a sales process into what they're already doing to enhance their masterful in-home presentation, on average has a 28% instant increase in revenue. So you can realize a 28% increase in sales revenue simply by bolting on a sales process to your team. So if that's not enough incentive to get organized and to start investing in training, I don't know what is. But
I'd say so.
Turn it back to you.
No, that should be a big motivating factor. I want to remind everybody, if you have questions as we go along, drop them in the chat and we'll get to them. If we're on that topic, I try to fit them in, in real time. If not, we'll save them for the end. But awesome. Go ahead, feel free, drop as many questions, comments, etc., and I'll try to fit them in here. There's changes in the market, Dominic. Like we just talked about the difference between being in a once in a generation lifetime type pandemic situation that no one really knew how to navigate, because we'd never been through it, to we're now in a more maybe consolidated, more competitive industry, specifically about home improvement. So what are the best sales teams, if you had to say the best sales teams out there right now? Is it recruiting? Is it motivating the talent that they have? Is it sales meetings? What are the best teams doing currently to navigate a highly competitive landscape?
Yeah, so there's two words that are most important in this topic is training and technology. So the best sales teams that I'm working with and I'm seeing that are constantly setting records and continue to grow year over year are making the investment to stay ahead of the curve on training and technology. And this is one message. This is why the theme here is get our stuff together, because if you're not fully embracing this new revolution of technology and AI and all this stuff going on, you will get steamrolled by the companies that are. And this is why when I talk to some of my partners and colleagues that are running AI tech companies, they said it's not necessarily AI that's going to replace people. Of course, there will be that. But what more people should be thinking about is you're going to get replaced by people that are using AI, people that are using technology to its fullest extent to streamline efficiency, to hone in their skills. And this is what we'll talk about on this webinar a little bit more. We have access to over 100 years worth of data now that will basically show you exactly how all your salespeople can start getting their act together. We can actually tell you, not based on theory, based on factual data, what your salespeople must be doing in order to have higher results and higher conversion on those precious leads. So technology, what types of technology should I be investing in? First of all, if you're going into a house, doing things on a 3-ring binder and doing things on paper contracts and agreements, that's one area I definitely recommend companies make the investment. So the top companies that I see that are highly effective, highly efficient, they're investing in the digital platforms that go paperless. They're investing in their masterful in-home presentations so they can deliver this stuff with compelling videos and unbelievably engaging content that makes the whole presentation much more interactive, to key to the prospect's emotional center. They're investing in AI, not only to provide data on what the team's actually doing, for once actually giving you visibility as to what exactly your team's doing in the house, but also you can use AI ahead of time in the preparation phase of the lead. So where every salesperson can go into every house leveraging technology, literally knowing who these people are, what their personality types are, what their credit scores are, what their financial capability is, even what their recreation, like likes, dislikes, so they can literally go into every lead prepared to modify their strategy based on this certain personality type. So if I'm going to be speaking to what I deem to be a more analytical type prospect, or a more assertive type individual, or a more collaborative type prospect, leveraging technology and training, I can modify my strategy just as a chameleon in sales. And one quote one of my sales reps told me is, if you want to make $1 million, you got to be a chameleon. Doesn't necessarily rhyme, but it sounds
I'm
catchy.
stealing that, Dominic.
Yeah, if you want to make $1 million, you got to be a chameleon. And it's not changing the system, but you modify how you're delivering the message based on certain personality types and certain individuals. So you give them that personalized experience. So those are the types of things that we're seeing people doing. The top companies are investing in sales training boot camps. They're investing in better samples and soft packs to destroy the competition, to separate themselves, to overcome objections proactively. So the best way to overcome any objection is to bring it up first. So if I'm getting shop around as an objection, how can I take that prospect on a shopping spree right then and there in their house and make it engage their senses, an interactive experience, hands-on? Are your salespeople bringing your samples into the house? Are they demonstrating your product or service live there in person, like they should? Or are they doing a brochure demo and writing the price on the back of a business card, right? Mm-hmm. So we're seeing the companies that are highly successful are the ones making the investment to give themselves the upper hand on the competition. And what's interesting right now that I want to convey to everybody is the home improvement industry is actually the first major industry getting completely and utterly disrupted by AI, which is weird because normally the home improvement industry is like 15, 20 years behind the rest of the world when it comes to embracing technology. But now things have changed where our industry, when it comes to call centers, when it comes to production operations, when it comes to sales coaching, ride-alongs, field management, issuing of leads, AI is fully immersed now in our industry, whether we like it or not. And it's taking off absolutely like wildfire, like anything we've ever seen in our lifetime. So the big message is, top companies, if you want to have the competitive advantage, you got to dive in and receive the training you need to take your skills to the next level and also embrace the technology.
Dominic, I'm curious, and just I can speak on a company cam perspective. One of the hottest topics we always write about to your point, and we're going to get to AI here more specifically in a second, but is software adoption, and we have a million reasons we've heard, like, well, we don't want to adopt this either. I know there's just the innate hatred of change within a company. There is, this is too hard. There's people that are kind of adverse to technology just in general. There are people that, like, what are the biggest, before we get into why, you know what I mean, like the AI and specifically what it's doing in the home improvement industry, what do you think the biggest barriers are? Like, just because we asked the question here in the chat, if people here that are joining us on the webinar today are using AI, and we had some yeses, and I'm big fans of Chat GPT. Mike says no. So, I mean, it's like there's a mix. What do you think the barriers are when Andy says yes as well?
Well, I can speak to my personal experience. When I first got into the industry, I was selling on a 3-ring binder. So I literally would go into a house, lay that bad boy on the table, and it was a thick 3-ring binder. And of course, every homeowner said, "You're not going to go through that whole thing, are you?" I'm like, "No, I'll give you the Reader's Digest version. I promise I'll be brief." And then sure enough, I go through the whole damn thing.
Right. Yeah.
But I was Salesman of the Year 3 years in a row with that 3-ring binder. Me and that 3-ring binder were literally attached at the hip. I loved that book. It made me so much money. And I was having reasonable levels of success with this thing. Then our company decided they wanted to move from a 3-ring binder to doing it on PowerPoint on a tablet. And I didn't like it at first. I was kind of pushing back on it. And I was a little hesitant to embrace going from my 3-ring binder to a computer. And I make up all kinds of excuses. I'm like, well, what if I'm in the house and the battery dies? Or, what if they don't have internet? Or what if this, what if that? I had about 20 what ifs, all kinds of reasons. But essentially what it was is human beings resist change like the plague, especially if I'm comfortable with something and I'm having reasonable levels of success doing things a certain way. It's really difficult for me to sell myself on completely changing what I have been doing. And that's one of the big messages that I'm hearing from a lot of our partners now, that right now, contractors are going to have to accept the fact that they are not going to continue to be able to do what they have been doing. What gave them success in the past is not necessarily going to continue to give them success in the present or certainly in the near future. So with that in mind, embracing technology like AI, frankly, my team will even tell you, I was scared to death of AI. I still have a little bit of fear of it, right? I mean, is it going to take over the world or not? Is it going to be like an apocalypse over this stuff? Who knows? But then I said, you know what? I heard enough from, industry leaders and clients and colleagues and partners that I work with, where I'm like, I'm just going to give it a shot. And oh my God, once you dabble your foot into this stuff, the level of efficiency you can realize in your company, in your business. And now, if you're a sales leader watching this, or an owner that oversees a sales team, imagine if you could ride inside every house on every lead with every salesperson and have 100% visibility on what all your salespeople are doing every single day. If you could clone yourself and be inside every house, ride along with everybody every single day, imagine how much data and feedback that would give you to be a more effective coach and leader for your team. AI can do that for you now. So these are the types of things, human beings, again, just naturally resist change when they get comfortable, because in order to embrace technology, you got to step outside your comfort zone. There's a level of uncertainty about what that looks like and where it goes from here. And that's essentially what we have to be willing to do as leaders. This is why being a leader is an extreme endeavor, is because we're essentially navigating our team into uncharted territory, uncharted waters, and you got to do it long-headed into battle, so to speak, without hesitation. But right now, it's something that we can't put off much longer. At the speed of which this stuff is taking over the industry and disrupting the industry, and the speed in which companies are adopting this and realizing unprecedented growth and success, it's very, very important now people really start taking it seriously. And it can be as simple as get Chat GPT-4 on your phone, start getting used to it, start using it for some of your tasks, and you're going to start to realize, I mean, I think you guys even use it for this webinar, right? Coming up with a catchy title for this webinar. And I've noticed, like, for my own creativity and writer's block, Chat GPT is a phenomenal tool. But with your call center, with your sales department, with, again, all departments within your organization, you're going to see the need for you guys to dive in and take advantage, embrace this technology is only going to increase literally by the week now, by month over month. So,
Dominic, we have there's a question here, and I think you kind of dipped your toe in that water a little bit, but I don't know if you want to add to this. Matt asked, can you give tangible examples of how you're integrating, you being you, integrating AI into your business aside from, say, Chat GPT creating marketing content? And Erica kind of said, yeah, what Matt asked. So got a couple people that are just looking for, and I think maybe you could even approach it from the standpoint of, hey, I'm not using it right now. If I was going to start with Chat GPT 4 or some other AI platform, what would I
yep.
dive into and do? And, I
Well,
guess, how would you get started?
this is why I'm such a firm believer and such an advocate for this stuff. So we actually have a program at Gross University called the Sales Academy Masterclass. And essentially what this is every single month, the second Monday of each month, we start a brand new 2-week curriculum where we take salespeople from all over the United States, companies literally throwing salespeople at us. We take them through a comprehensive 2-week training. We test them, we certify them as Gross University graduates. And essentially, once they graduate, of course, they get placed back into their organization to receive product-specific training. And it's one thing we're getting more actively involved in is product and installation training. But the thing for us is after we train a salesperson, how the hell are we going to know what at all they're doing once they get out in the field and start running leads? So we personally use Rilla Voice at Gross University as our primary coaching AI technology. And what this does is after we train a rep virtually at Gross University and certify them, basically all their calls are recorded in the house. Their sales encounters are recorded from start to finish on their AI app. After the calls are scored and recorded, that recording gets automatically uploaded to Rilla Voice, where AI transcribes and scores and provides immediate feedback on what happened in the house. So essentially, we have a dashboard now of all the reps that we're training at Gross University with full visibility on what exactly it is they're doing in the home. Because one thing we're firm believers on, the initial training is crucial, of course, but more important to that is how are we navigating the post-training molding and support to keep these salespeople growing and keep them on track? If we have no visibility, how the hell are we going to provide intelligent coaching and guidance as to what they're doing? The analogy we commonly talk about, it's like training and drilling and rehearsing with your team. Let's say you're coaching a baseball or football team, but then you never once go watch them play a live game. You're going to have very minimal results coaching that way. So that's how we're using AI internally. I'm actually talking right now with several automation companies. We got some partners at Channel Automation and Structurally, where we're going to be putting together an entire call center at Gross University that doesn't require one person. It's going to be done completely using AI and automation. So through email campaigns, text messaging, of course, the customer satisfaction, customer support, and then also inbound and outbound. Literally, we're going to have call handlers that are completely controlled using AI when people call in, or we're actually going to have outbound, and it literally sounds like you're talking to a real person. So these are some of the ways internally at Gross University we're using AI, and the same thing for our clients. And this is what's important to me is if I'm going to be an advocate for anyone's product or service, I want to make sure that I use it personally and can actually speak to the results of what that technology is going to bring. This is why I really love our partnerships at Gross University. It's actually why I'm a huge fan of Company Cam too, because I've been in the home at the kitchen table using Company Cam as a massive boomerang to the sale, with the ability to have full visibility and transparency on every project. And of course, differentiating yourself from every other chuck in a truck, and how Company Cam really adds a whole different level of legitimacy to the warranty. But we can go on and on about AI, but man, I'm telling you what it can do for your business. And I think everything's got to be right now thought of as like a hybrid type strategy. I'm not going to go all in and only do AI or only have human beings running things. You want to have a combination of both, maximize the power of both AI and of course training and psychology and human behavior to get the maximum results. So
very cool. Well, before we wrap up, I do want to ask this question that we and I know Matt's got a question as well, and we'll get to other questions. So if you do have them, throw them in before we wrap up. But What are the best sales teams doing from a closing perspective out there right now, like that you see, Dominic? Like, I mean, we talked about disruption and technology and people kind of resting on their laurels or doing things the same old way. What are some things you see, the ones that aren't doing it the same old way beyond just adopting technology that maybe just, and also, if you have any slides or anything from an AI perspective with some more data,
Yep.
this would be a
So
great time to
you're in
share
for
it
a
as
treat,
well.
right? So thanks for
Yeah,
teeing me up here.
you bet.
So what I'll do, so this is what's priceless about AI. So if anyone wants to see the value of what AI brings to the table, this is just a small taste of what we can do with AI. So we actually have at our fingertips now, as I mentioned previously, we have access to 100 years worth of data, 100 years worth of factual information that essentially can be used to train and coach salespeople, not based in theory, but based in fact, exactly what they need to do to come out with the outcome they desire more often than not. Now, this information is what the top 1% of all the salespeople in the country, after analyzing 1 million sales encounters, this is what the top 1% of closers are doing to separate themselves from everybody else. And we're talking salespeople, one person, that are selling $4, $5, $6 million in business annually. So raise your hand virtually if you would like to have a $5, $6 million producer on your team. Okay. So these are the things that we need to be focusing on in order to have those types of results. One thing that top performers do, and this is going to come as a huge surprise to everybody, is they actually listen more and talk less. Shocking, right? A salesperson that actually listens. So there's a reason why the Lord gave us one mouth and 2 ears. So what does it mean to listen more? What it means is sales reps that have higher levels of success have a balanced talk ratio in the house. So one thing I always picture when I'm training salespeople is that at the kitchen table, picture there's a voice-activated spotlight above the kitchen table. And the voice-activated spotlight is actually programmed to shine on the person who is talking. So if your salesperson is in the house and they're flapping their jaw, which of course is necessary, you got to say something. But every time they're flapping the jaw, the spotlight turns around and is shining on them. If the spotlight's shining on me, where's the prospect left? In the dark. Now, what we're seeing is the average salesperson talks 78% of the time. Now, when I say average, I want to be clear. We're not talking about a bad salesperson. We're not talking about an underperformer. We're talking average. So this is decent. This salesperson's having okay levels of success. The top 1% of salespeople talk between 45 and 62% of the time. So I like to average it out, basically a 50-50 talk ratio. And what this means is with the top sales professionals, they make the entire sales encounter a conversation and not an interrogation or lecture. So back and forth dialogue. Now, how are they able to make the sales encounter a conversation? Well, we're going to talk about that in the next slide, but there's one thing I want to talk about when it pertains to listening. There's a difference between actually listening to somebody and waiting for your turn to talk. Now, we as human beings, for the most part, anytime we're in a conversation, a lot of times, if we're honest with ourselves, we're waiting for our turn to talk. And what I mean by that is, as I'm talking right now, I guarantee you or people watching this have a monologue going on in their head of what they're thinking, or maybe you're even thinking about what you're going to say next, right? So we have this robot in our head that doesn't shut the hell up. So we're trying to listen to two people at once. So what's important to try to train yourself to do, and what your salespeople need to train themselves to do, is when they're talking to friends, family, coworkers, in and out of work, of course, talking to their client or prospect, we got to train to only listen to that person's words, only listen to what they're saying. And when I say listen, I mean truly, deeply listen. Now, at Grouse University, we define deep listening as listening with your ears, eyes, and intuition. So I'm listening what they're saying audibly. I'm looking at their facial expressions and body language, looking for their nonverbal cues, because a lot of times what their words are saying doesn't necessarily match what their body's telling me or their face.
Yeah.
But I'm also sensing the emotion, the tonality behind what they're saying. So this is going to allow me to comprehend the entire message that the prospect is conveying. And then after they speak, I pause for a second, process the information, and then I respond with another intelligent, open-ended question to get more information, or at least respond with an intelligent rebuttal that clearly demonstrates I was listening. So again, there's a difference between listening and waiting for your turn to talk. Listening, as it turns out, is one of the most difficult things for salespeople to do. What do salespeople love doing? This is why I love doing these webinars, because I can just talk all day and you guys have to sit there and watch. So now, how do we get people to talk more in the house? How do we have a more balanced talk ratio? Well, the top 1% of closers, they ask 5 times more questions than average salespeople do. And when I say questions, I'm referring to especially open-ended questions. Now, at Grasso University, we define an open-ended question as an information-seeking question that we do not know the answer to. So it's open-ended. Now, open-ended questions are vital in a sales encounter because prospects are just like icebergs. 80% of what I need to influence this person effectively is beneath the surface, and the only way I'm going to get them to disclose that information is through asking open-ended questions. Now, here's what average salespeople do. They do an okay job asking questions in the beginning because they're trying to get to know this person. Maybe you have some sort of survey or needs assessment they go through. You have a series of questions. So they do a pretty good job in the beginning. But then just like a lot of companies' warranties, after a certain amount of time, it prorates, it drops off a cliff, right? So now, what is the difference? A lot of times when a salesperson begins selling, to put their sales hat on, they begin simply just talking at them. And one thing we train at Grasso University that everyone should be clear on is selling is not telling. Telling is not selling. Anything I say to the prospect is an opinion. However, when they say it, they own it. The most important thing I need to be able to do to effectively influence somebody in a lot of cases is to reprogram their belief system. So literally reprogramming their belief system. When they show up to the house, whatever beliefs and thoughts and feelings they have when you get there are not necessarily the thoughts and feelings I need to earn their business. So how do we reprogram their belief system? Through asking questions, getting the homeowner saying it, getting them to basically come up with to their own conclusion. And when they say it, they own it. And top performers are brilliant at asking open-ended questions in a linear fashion throughout the entire in-home consultation, throughout the entire sales encounter. Now, the reason why this is difficult is because this takes preparation. Let me ask you a question. Do you watch stand-up comedy?
Oh,
Do
yeah.
you like stand-up comedy?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So now think of a 60-minute routine.
Mm-hmm.
How long does it take for a stand-up comedian to prepare for a 1-hour routine?
A lot longer than 60 minutes.
It takes them a year on average. Yeah. It takes them 1 year. So Jerry Seinfeld would often say is like, I would write a joke down and then it would take me a year just to learn how to deliver it to perfection, right? To perfect the delivery. Because comedians go next level, right? They write down what jokes they're going to do. They obviously focus a lot on the delivery, the tonality, their body language, how they're animated. They write in laughter into the routine. What type of laughter am I going to get and when is the crowd going to laugh based on the punchline or when I deliver the joke? And then throughout whatever responses they get from the audience, or maybe if they ask a question to the audience, it may seem like these comedians are improvising, right? But comedians do what's called a planned improv, meaning that they know what questions they're going to ask. They know the most likely responses they're going to get from the audience because human beings are predictable. And then based on the responses they get, they already have a strategy on what direction they're going to go to basically piggyback off of what the person in the audience just said. So it looks like every show is different, but it's planned improv. Now, salespeople can do the same thing, and this is what I'm referring to as next level preparation. You can plan in advance what questions you're going to ask and when. One of the best things I love doing with my sales team is we'd go through our entire in-home consultation. We go through the needs assessment. We go through the inspection, the company story, the product presentation. And as a mastermind group, we would brainstorm what questions are we going to ask and when to get the customer talking. So on this slide of our in-home presentation, what questions can we ask to get them talking, to get them telling us? Mm-hmm. And when you do that, you can build out in advance a really well-rehearsed, well-prepared masterful presentation. And you can even go the next level. When I ask this question to my prospect, what's the most probable responses I can get? And based on those responses, how can I layer that with more open-ended questions to keep them talking? And there's a book, I think it's called 7 Layers Deep. But a lot of times when you get 7 layers deep on your ability to ask questions and get them to truly open up to you, you activate what's called the self-disclosure loop. And essentially what ends up happening is human beings get pleasure from revealing personal information, from self-disclosing. And when you practice true deep listening, when you ask the right questions and enough questions, essentially the prospects open up to you, just like an open book, and basically tell you everything you need to know to effectively influence them. They spill the beans on all of it. So that 80%, all of it comes to the surface, and now you're in a position where you can deliver a masterful presentation tailored to them. So again, I can go on for hours about this stuff, but that's what now just to give you an idea, on average, top 1% of closers are asking between 30 and 40 open-ended questions per hour. Now, it may not even seem like that much. In my opinion, I think it should be more. But think of what your reps are doing now. Are they asking at least 30 to 40 open-ended questions per hour? That can be prepared for in advance. Now, of course, slow things down. What's interesting, we talk a lot in sales about emotional intelligence. So everyone's heard of this, emotional intelligence, sales EQ. What's interesting is a sales rep's ability to control their disruptive emotions and their talk speed makes a profound difference in their ability to convert. So now one thing a sales rep has a tendency to do is when they begin closing, average sales reps talk faster. They increase their talk speed when price is on the table, when they're trying to earn their business. What top performers do is, of course, they bring a lot of energy in the beginning when they're selling, but they actually increase their patience and slow down their talk speed when price is on the table. And this may seem like a very simple thing, but it's very hard for salespeople to do, especially when they're laying down a big ticket. Now, they've done studies on this, that in a sales encounter, the prospect's heart rate will actually mirror the sales rep's heart rate. Now, of course, if I have a lot of anxiety, if I'm uncomfortable, if my heart rate increases, what's going to happen is that customer is going to start to feel uncomfortable. And there's one thing I want to make clear is you cannot and will not close somebody unless they're comfortable and relaxed. So throughout the sales encounter, and especially in the closing sequence, your sales professionals need to have what I define as a relaxed, assertive confidence. So of course, confidence is key. I need to be assertive. I can't beat around the bush. Timid salespeople should have skinny children, right? Zig Ziglar. But I also need to maintain composure of my disruptive emotions and stay relaxed, calm down, slow down. So that's the key there, the key takeaway. Now, we also know that top performers spend way more time on these 3 areas. Financial terms. How many of you offer financing? So if you want to empower your salespeople to no longer sell on price and to sell on affordability and profitability, you need to not only offer financing, but make sure your salespeople receive the proper training on how to leverage financing as a boomerang to the sale. After analyzing 1 million sales encounters, the top 1% of closers spend almost 8 times more going over financial terms than average salespeople do. Now, again, I want to be clear. Average does not mean bad. That means still decent. But 8 times more. Why are they spending 8 times more going over financial terms? Well, because they sprinkle in financial terms throughout the entire sales encounter. Because the goal here is I need to bring up financing early and often in the sales encounter. So by the time I get to the negotiating table and I'm going over the monthly investment options, they're already conditioned that financing is the way that everybody buys. Now, what average salespeople do is they wait till the end, till they get to price delivery, and they throw financing out there like a Hail Mary, dangling a carrot out there, hoping to God that the customer just latches onto it. So if you waited that long, that's already too late. Now, again, you can have some level of success doing that, but you're going to have much greater levels of success leveraging financing as a boomerang to the sale by bringing it up early and often and almost leaving it like a trail of breadcrumbs throughout the entire sales encounter. The company story. A lot of companies I talk to, their company story, basically the vignette where they're describing all the ways their company is different from the competition, why, again, the goal is to build high levels of trust and credibility in your organization that you're the company to get the work done. A lot of companies, their company story is 5 to 10 minutes at most. And some people, I've talked to companies who are like, oh, my company story is 10 minutes, but we think it's too long. Too long? 10 minutes? Most important ingredient to any sale is trust. If they don't trust your company, if they're not head over heels convinced that you are the company they want doing the work, it doesn't matter what your product is. It doesn't matter what your service is. It doesn't matter how great your shingle is if it's not installed properly. If they don't have trust and faith that you're not only going to install it right, but stand behind it and be there to take care of them in the future. So the company story, top performers spend 4 times the amount of time. And what I mean is, instead of 5 to 10 minutes, it's anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes they're spending on the company story. Because at the end of any company story, I should be able to get the following commitment. If I can demonstrate to you a roofing solution you absolutely fall in love with, a roofing system that permanently solves your problems, and we can exceed your expectations on affordability, so far would our company have earned the right to ask for your business. That's how powerful my company story should be. After I'm done explaining all the different things my company does to go the extra mile, of course, our history of satisfied customers, our reputation, our white glove 5-star experience that we give to every homeowner, right? I should be able to get that strong of a commitment. I should feel like I'm already this close to earning their business after my company story. Then lastly is qualification. I'm not going to get too in depth into that, but essentially throughout the sales process, I'm qualifying the homeowner and getting trial close commitments on all the things that I'm selling on. So getting the work done, my company, my product, my service, my warranty proposition. I'm getting the homeowner qualified and tied down and committed that they would never accept a solution without those things. That they need to commit to those things. And ideally, as I'm getting commitments on all the things that I'm selling them on, I'm getting handshake commitments from my prospects. So nail in the coffin. So getting their physical contract and all those things. Now, this is one of the last things I want to bring up, and I appreciate you giving me the stage here. I know I talk a lot. So, timeline in the house. This is what I brought up earlier in this webinar. This is one of the bad habits that I saw forming in the industry is people were shortcutting. And people were shortcutting. They weren't having results. They think they need to shortcut more. It's unbelievable. So now the average timeline in the house is between 30 minutes and 60 minutes. That's the average timeline. And as a result, the average closing percentage that they're garnering is between 10 and 20%. What we're noticing from top performers, the top 1% of closers are in the house on average between 2 and 3 hours is the average. Now, here's what I want to convey to everybody watching this, especially if you're selling a roofing system, a big ticket, siding, even windows or baths or kitchens. Something magical happens after 2.5 hours. Something magical happens after 2.5 hours. And it's almost as simple as, man, this person's been talking about this stuff for so long, this stuff has to be good. But if I'm being more precise on why that matters, if I'm truly going to make it my goal to build a foundation of trust, a foundation of rapport, likability, mutual respect, get to know this person, demonstrate sincere empathy that I truly understand them, effectively price condition, make sure the value far exceeds the price. I want to do a $40,000 presentation for a $20,000 roofing system or project, right? I need to slow down and invest the time. So I was talking to a sales rep recently that has been at 71% closing for the last 5 years in a row. And this is a rep that does $4 or $5 million a year. He actually wrote $4.5 million in 2023, taking 3 months off. It's absolutely insane. But the big thing he says is I invest the time in every house. And by the time I leave, and of course he brings passion and energy, all the things that salespeople need. By the time I leave, these people literally want to adopt me. They wouldn't dare give their business to anyone else because I'm no longer just a salesperson or a design consultant. I'm a friend or literally part of the family by the time I leave. So if we want to have success being the first one in, last one in, you have to slow down and invest the time. Don't quit early. Now, this may come as a surprise. Now, this is why it's important to have a sales process. And more important than having a sales process is using the darn thing, okay? Top performers stick to a process more consistently. Now, with any sales encounter, we had mentioned earlier about being a chameleon, which means that I have to modify my delivery, how I'm presenting, to make sure it's a personalized experience, to make sure I'm appealing to people of different personality types. So that's something that we will agree with wholeheartedly. We will shout that from the mountaintops. But at the same time, I can't be wild, wild west shooting from the hip, making it up as I go. I have to have a roadmap to the sale, because if you don't have a roadmap to the sale, I say, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there, right? And more often than not, it's not where you want to be. Top sales performers on average are 70% compliant to a script, to a system. And that 30% difference is the level of customization, personalization, being creative, thinking outside the box in order to influence this specific individual in this specific situation. Underperformers, on average, are between 40 and 45% compliant to a script. So that little difference there between being 40% compliant and 70% compliant to a script is what separates the top 1% from the average salespeople. So you can kind of see the patterns here. Like, what am I really getting at if we were to summarize this whole thing? And I'll try to get to the summary here. So this is the Norman Vincent Peale strategy, right? First, you want to tell them what you're going to tell them, then you tell them, then you tell them what you told them, right? Top performers listen more, they ask more questions, they invest more time, they make it more interactive, they leverage financing, company story, all these things, and they focus on more emotional intelligence, emotional control, and they stick to a process. So I hope you guys are taking notes on this, because this is stuff I would have killed to have. This is information I did not have when I was a sales leader, when I was trying to build a high-performance sales team. Now the data is here. It's at your fingertips. So if there's any advantage to embracing technology, imagine the damage you can do as a sales trainer, having all this data available. You're turning sales into a data-driven sport. And you're making your sales meeting agendas, all your coaching efforts is on precisely what your sales team needs to know. You're not going into a sales meeting just preaching the same BS every single time, hooting and hollering about how they're screwing up, how they suck. You're coming in with a precise, intelligent agenda that's structured, that speaks to precisely what area of focus I need to be improving on as a team. And you want to talk about exponential growth you can experience as a sales team when you're coaching them on what matters most. And the thing I love about this is not bias. It's not me just making opinions or making accusations. I'm just looking at the data, and we're navigating this together as a team to get to the next level. So I think all this is really going to help you build a better sales culture, a better sales environment too.
It's fantastic, Dominic. Before we wrap up here, I do want to get to a couple questions. I know Matt from before, so this is kind of, I think we're talking about process with customers and call centers, but he said, as part of the process, letting customers know they are being recorded, or is that just happening in the background?
Yeah, so certain states, you don't have to mention they're being recorded, but
Right.
the way companies do this is, you know, when you call certain companies, they said for quality and training purposes, we do record these conversations.
Yeah.
So when you're setting the lead, if you're using AI to monitor the sales rep in the house, you just build into your qualification when you're explaining. Of course, they're going to show you products and samples. They're going to, of course, work out an estimate that's good for 1 year. And for quality and assurance purposes, they do record the audio of the conversation just to make sure that everything the sales rep promised to you is what we deliver on. Make sure everything is consistent from what you talked about to what we deliver on for your protection.
That's
so,
great.
Again, that's not exactly what they should say, but that's how companies are doing it, is when they qualify the lead and schedule the appointment, they just let the prospect know right then and there on the phone that we do record the audio of these conversations for quality and assurance and training purposes.
Very good. Jack asks, just to clarify, these figures you're offering are for sales reps in the contracting space or across all sales functions in your database?
So this is 1 million sales encounters that were scored and basically graded in the home improvement and home services industry. So across the home improvement and home service, I'm not talking about car sales or real estate or logistics. This is home remodeling, home improvement, and home services.
Love it. I know they can find you at grossouniversity.com, but do you want to talk about the 60-day challenge, Dominic?
So I just want to make sure, are there any other questions anybody has?
I think
that's
all the ones I grabbed in the chat. Yeah.
So the big thing I want to ask everybody here is, do you have what you deem to be a world-class training and onboarding experience for your sales team? Do you have a full-time sales trainer? On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your training and onboarding experience? So what I'm finding across the industry is very difficult for owners and even general sales managers or sales coaches to find the time to take 2 full weeks to come off the road, to get away from the administrative stuff they're involved in, to provide a really robust world-class sales training. So that's why we developed this program called the Sales Academy Masterclass. Now, I want to be clear that at Grosso University, we live, eat, breathe, and sleep sales training. This is all we do day in and day out, is train the living hell out of salespeople. And this is literally my entire life is dedicated to this. Now, we understand some people are hesitant to throw their salespeople at a new system and, of course, start paying money for something before they necessarily see the results. So we actually created recently what's actually called the 60-day challenge. And what this is we're going to allow everyone on this webinar to basically try our 60-day challenge, which starts with our Sales Academy Masterclass. So we welcome you to enter in one sales rep and one sales leader. And the reason why we want the sales leader involved is because we want them to vet out the program, make sure it's something that they're comfortable with, because we want to make sure that whoever's leading the team believes in it, they love it, they want it to be a part of how they're training, coaching their team from now on. The second Monday of every month, we're going to have those two people enter into our Sales Academy Masterclass absolutely free. They go through the full 2-week training. So, of course, they're going to be put to work. There's going to be testing. There's going to be curriculum. They have a final exam at the end. They have to pass the training. After they graduate, we're going to give them a full 60-day access to our online university. So we actually have an online training platform that literally has hundreds of hours of sales training content for continued post-training molding and support to keep sharpening the axe. I like to think of it as lane assist to keep them on track. But we give that sales leader and that salesperson access to that for 60 days and let the results speak for themselves. And the 60-day challenges, we challenge you to give us a salesperson, a sales leader to train, and let the results speak for themselves. If you don't see the results, the training is absolutely free. It didn't cost you anything. There's no obligation. If you're satisfied with the results, if you're seeing an instant return on your investment, bump in revenue, then it's just simply a month-over-month monthly investment. And it comes out to about $250 a month per rep, which is extremely affordable. Essentially, if a rep gets one sale in a year through this training, it pays for the whole year for that salesperson and more. So essentially, it's just month over month. And what we're finding is companies dip their toe in by entering in a salesperson or sales leader into our 60-day challenge. And then when they see an instant bump in performance and revenue, then they're like, okay, I want more results like this. And they tend to put more salespeople in it. But we want to give you a way you can try out this world-class training and onboarding experience with no risk, no obligation. And that's open to everybody. As a matter of fact, we put a link in the chat. And what that link is, you guys can pull it up. It's access to Matt Burke's calendar. He's my COO at Grosso University. And what we welcome everybody to do is set up a 30-minute chat with Matt Burke. Again, it's just a discovery call. We can go over more in depth about what the Sales Academy Masterclass includes. Again, you can obviously have all the expectations. And we get companies that absolutely love this because they don't have to do the heavy lifting anymore. They're throwing, 5, 10, 15 reps at us a month. And we become that filtration system to kind of weed out the reps that aren't necessarily cut out for it. So you don't have that devastating time and financial investment in a mishired employee. Let us do the heavy lifting for you so you can focus on working on your business, not in your business. And then we work alongside you, again, using AI and technology to make sure we're continuing to fine-tune and enhance the performance of the salesperson forever after. So
fantastic.
Hopefully that makes sense to people, but it's definitely an amazing program and it's taken off like wildfire. So we encourage everyone to jump on board.
That's awesome. One more question before I let you go. Joe asked, can the 2 hours be spread over a couple visits, say 2 or 3 rather than one call?
So at Grosso University, we exclusively train on a one-call close. However, I will say that we do have clients that offer design build or, where they're doing full kitchen remodels or full basement remodels that take our sales process and they do break it up into 2 visits just because there's CAD drawings involved and they got to kind of do a major design walkthrough. But most products that our clients are selling, we train them how to do it in the first visit. And this is why it's also important to have the right system and technology, because if your salespeople don't have the means to come up with an exact to the penny price on your product or service within a few minutes, this is another reason why technology is key. There's digital platforms like Leap and Paradigm Vendo, and of course, one-click contractors out there. And what that allows you to do is literally within a couple minutes, you can have the most gorgeous, professionally created, personalized proposal, exact to the penny total investment, written up So that empowers that salesperson to execute a one call close. So I don't have to go back, work out the price, and then come back. Because the simple goal here is we want to strike when the iron's hot. You only have one opportunity to make a good first impression. And what salespeople realize when they come back out a second time is all that emotion, that magic fairy dust they have on the first visit, it tends to dissipate a little bit on the second visit. It's not the same level of emotion and enthusiasm. So we want to train salespeople to strike while the iron's hot and capitalize. And we actually have salespeople closing design, build, basement. I'm talking $200,000 basement remodeling projects following our Grasso sales process. So whether you do a one call or a two call or three call, we can basically customize our system so it works for what you're doing. But of course, most of the products do follow a one call close.
Dominic, this was fantastic. Thank you so much for the time today.
No, it's an honor to be here. We appreciate everyone's time, investing in their future, their education. Hopefully we took away some good golden nuggets that you can take back with you. And if you feel it's a good fit, we definitely encourage everyone, give us an opportunity. At the very least, you can go on grossouniversity.com. Look at all of our reviews. Just go on Google. We got like 155-star reviews. Read what people are saying about our training. It's absolutely unparalleled. There's nothing like it. And again, we appreciate Company Cam considering us and, of course, myself for this webinar.
Awesome. Dominic, have a fantastic day. And thanks, everybody, for attending.
You as well. Take care.